Good to have you with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. I've got two questions on this Monday. Number one, why doesn't the corporate media, when they poll, and believe me, they have millions of dollars to poll, why don't they ask the question how Bernie Sanders would fare against a Republican opponent like Bush or Trump or Rubio or anybody else who's running, or John Kasich for that matter? I asked that question because when I was in Ohio last week for 3 days, folks in Ohio are convinced that Kasich is going to show up on the ticket because they know their state is so crucial and they need Ohio if they're going to win the White House, the Republicans. I'm not so sure. But I want to know two questions here. Why don't they poll, and I'm talking about all of the networks, asking the question, how would Bernie Sanders do against Trump nationally? I don't see that. I don't see it anywhere. The next thing is, I think all of us who are in the news business would admit that 10,000, 15,000, and 20,000 people showing up to hear a single person speak is probably a news story. The next question is this. When does the corporate media do a town hall meeting with Bernie Sanders? Does Bernie not speak the language of the corporate boys to the point where they don't even want to put him on TV in that setting? The fact of the matter is that the enthusiasm that has taken place behind the Sanders campaign is simply unparalleled. And for him to double up the number than what Barack Obama got in Boston, I think speaks volumes. For more on this, let's turn to Larry Cohen. He is the former president of the Communication Workers of America and now is an advisor and surrogate to the Bernie Sanders campaign. Larry, good to have you with us.
My pleasure. Great work in Ohio last week.
I want to tell you, Larry, that the folks in Ohio are ready for Bernie. I mean, if he goes to Lorain or Cleveland or Youngstown, he is right in their wheelhouse. Not to say that there's not a lot of Clinton support there, but what Bernie is saying is resonating with these folks. So I think he would play extremely well in Ohio. To my knowledge, he hasn't been there yet, has he?
No, he's not been in the Midwest. We're encouraging him. Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, not been there.
Okay, he has been to
Wisconsin. Part of the problem is he goes, he's a senator. So he's in the Senate Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And so that leaves, 4 days a week. We'll get him to the Midwest.
Yeah, no question. Well, I'll tell you, you're giving him great advice. Look at these crowds. What is it? At this point, it just seems like these numbers continue to grow. The closer they look, the more they like it. But they're also donating. And these average donations are just over $30, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're repetitive. That's the big story. The biggest story is the number of people that support Bernie, whether it's teachers who are NEA members. And I should mention he did a stop between Springfield and Boston at the Massachusetts Education Association, where the leadership supports him. And obviously from these crowds, so do the teachers who are the members. He jammed that in as well on the way from Springfield at 3 o'clock to Boston at 6 o'clock. But, it's a phenomena here. It's the number of working people and students and activists who will turn out for him on a Saturday night in Boston, over 20,000 on Saturday night. And they had to stand up the whole time. This is the first time that the event was standing only for everybody. In the past, 400 or 500 people would stand. But, this kind of commitment and this kind of enthusiasm also does translate into gigantic fundraising. And the amount of money on hand for the Sanders campaign is now virtually equivalent to the Clinton campaign, despite her campaign tapping out people at $2,700 and then super PACs on top of it. So this is definitely a story, as you have said, worth telling, that the corporate media underreports.
Horribly underreports this. I want to see a town hall meeting with Bernie Sanders on any of the networks, and I predict it isn't going to happen. But I want to ask about this money, Mr. Cohen. Does this change the strategy at all for Sanders?
It does. So in the 17 states that are March 1st or earlier, there will be staffing in all of them now, and aggressive staffing. The staffing does matter to support volunteers. Our backbone is definitely volunteers. That event in Boston was run by volunteers. They were there with clipboards as everybody came in to make sure that people had been signed in. There's no cost, but the people do sign in with their email addresses. That's what builds this campaign. Almost 500,000 people have been to see Bernie somewhere already. So there is a direct relationship between the fundraising and the staffing. In particular, we are not spending money on ads. And as you have said, and Bernie has said, no super PACs. And that speaks volumes.
So he hasn't run any television ads as of yet. Is that correct?
To my belief, it's totally correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe no ad.
Okay. So no PAC money, no negative comments, no dirty ads, no TV, and 20,000 people are showing up. And
right.
the corporate media isn't giving him the equal coverage that Clinton is getting or any of the other candidates who are running. So the fact of the matter is that this crowd that is showing up, it's beyond curiosity. I mean, this is involvement. That's what I'd say. Your thoughts?
Oh, it's total involvement. The people didn't stand in line and then stand up for an hour inside for curiosity on a Saturday night in Boston. And it's not just Boston. It's the whole range of these. There's been about 15 of these with record crowds. No, this is real commitment. And these people are committed not only to Bernie, but as he calls it, the political revolution. What are we going to build in terms of city after city?